We left off yesterday that Krishna was angry because his mother left him. She gave preference to the milk instead of him. So he was both hungry and left alone. That made him very angry. So he became so angry, he wanted to break something. So the first thing he did was he went to the churning pot because if you remember the story, when he was hungry, Mother Yasoda was churning butter. So he went and he grabbed hold of the churn to get her to stop. So when the milk was overflowing, she put him down next to the pot where she was churning butter. And then she went to the kitchen and left him there. And so he was next to the churning pot. And so he was angry, so he decided, I'll break the pot. So he was looking for something to break the pot, and he saw the churn. You understand? It's like a wooden pole, and on the bottom, it's not a blade, it's something that will churn the butter. And then there's ropes, and then you pull it like this, so it goes back and forth. So he thought he would take the churning rod out and break the pot. But he couldn't get the churning rod out because it was tied with rope, and he couldn't break the rope. The person who ties up the universe and entangles all people couldn't get the rope off of the churning rod. It's part of Krishna's amazing Leela. So he was collecting stones, and there was one stone on the ground which was broken. I think it was a broken piece of a pestle, mortar and pestle. It was a broken piece, and it was kind of pointed. So he hit the bottom of the pot once, twice, thrice, and Mother Yasoda didn't hear it. She was just very close, but she didn't hear anything. So that was Yogamaya's arrangement. He's hitting this pot, and he cracked it in such a way that it just opened. Because he was hungry, and he wanted to eat something, so he thought, well, I'll eat the yogurt, or whatever yogurt has been turned into butter, I'll eat that. So he cracked the pot, but when he cracked the pot, it all dripped out. Because the pot broke perfectly in half. And the pot is a devotee. And the pot knew what was coming. He said, now Krishna is going to crack me. And the pot said, I have to surrender to Krishna's will. So the pot surrendered and it cracked. It didn't fight. So maybe sometimes Krishna cracks us. Right? Is that interesting? The pot knew it's coming, but the pot couldn't fight it. So the pot surrendered to the program. So the pot cracked open, but then all the yogurt spilled out on the floor. The buttermilk, the butter, the yogurt. So now he can't eat it. Now he's even more angry. He's hungry. His mother's not there to take care of him. At least he thought he could eat the yogurt, and now the yogurt, he breaks the pot and it spills on the ground. So now what to do? What do you do when you're hungry? You open the refrigerator and there's nothing in it. What do? Or you want to get something, it slips out of your hand and it spills on the floor. Now what do? You think, okay, where else is there something? And then you say, well, my parents have locked up these really nice chocolates that they save for guests. But since they're not feeding me and they left me, I'm going to break in. And I know where the key is, and I'm going to go break in. So Krishna knows where the key is, so he gets the key, goes in the storeroom, and then he steals the bag. Is that okay? Okay. Now, he gets the butter, he eats it, and then actually there were different pots of butter. He took them all down. He thought some might be better than others. So he was sampling all the different butters. I don't know. I had a friend who used to eat butter. You eat butter when you were a kid? Just straight. He used to eat a whole stick. Never did?
It's like fat. It's not tasty. It's not that butter.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But, yeah. Anyway, Krishna likes eating butter. How do you go? Let me read here. So, while this is going on, Mother Yasoda's in the kitchen, and she's lowering the flame, cleaning up the mess, and she's thinking, my servants who put the milk on too high a fire, you can't trust them. She's just absorbed in thinking. And Krishna's doing all this mischief, making this noise. And she doesn't hear it. And when she looks out, she doesn't see what he's doing. His back is towards her. She looks out, and she just sees his back, and then she goes back to her work. So Yogamaya had arranged that Mother Yasoda wouldn't know what Krishna was doing. At least not yet. She would find out. Right? So there are 3 butter pots, and there's cloth covering them. And Krishna ripped into each one of them because he wanted to get the best butter, and he wanted to see if their one butter was better than the other. So he's being really mischievous. The taste of the butter was incredible. But the truth of the matter was that it was not what butter was normally like. It looked like butter. It felt like butter. But it was not. What was it? Who can say what it was?
Butter with sugar, butter.
No, I'll give you a hint. It actually was butter. But here it's saying what he tasted wasn't butter. Yeah. The butter was being made by his mother for him. So what was he tasting? He wasn't tasting the butter, he was tasting the love of his mother. That's what he was relishing. It was Mother Yasoda's love for him in the form of dairy. The sensation of dipping his hand into the butter was the same as being held in her embrace. The taste of the butter on his tongue was the same as the taste of her breast milk, and the effect of his eyes of seeing the butter was the same as seeing her transcendental form. Was it butter? No, it was Mother Yasoda. Can you relate? Like maybe your mother cooks you something, and you don't only see the food, you see the mother's love. So, like we say, when you offer prasadam, it's not Krishna doesn't want the prasadam, he wants the love. So here's a really good example to help us understand. And that's what Krishna's tasting. Right? You want to hear a nice story? This was back in the days when they shot film. They put film, the cameras had film, and there weren't digital cameras. And the art department, they went out to shoot pictures because they would have to shoot pictures of scenes, certain kinds of trees. And then they'd copy those pictures because they wanted to create a certain scene, either Vrindavan or Mayapur or somewhere, and they had to get something to copy. So they went, and they would also shoot pictures of devotees in different positions. I think Dinabandhu Ampurkam said the other day that the certain pictures were him, and sometimes if you know the devotees, when you see the paintings, there's Lord Chaitanya, there's Lord Nityananda, there's Gadadhar, and you go, that's so-and-so Prabhu, that's so-and-so Prabhu. So they went all day, they went out a few hours and they shot pictures all day. And then they got back and they realized there was no film in the camera. Somehow they were turning it, but there was no film. So the devotee that went was giving a lecture and said, you know, we went out all day, so materially there was no result. So the only result would be if that we did it in devotion, and if we didn't do it in devotion, there was no result. Isn't that interesting? Because we always think, well, whether I did it in devotion or not, here's the result. I did something. But in this case, the only thing they had was their devotion, because there wasn't any result, because there was no film in the camera. So I thought that was interesting. So now, something else interesting happened. Yesterday we were talking about how Krishna, he goes in and out of his child to God, but, all-knowing into the ignorant child. So now what happens is he's going into his Godhead because he's thinking, I'm angry, and I need this anger to make this pastime happen. Because if he's angry, he does mischief. And if he does mischief, Mother Yasoda is going to bind him. So he has the whole thing already planned out in his mind. Right? So he's starting to eat this butter, but he's really eating Mother Yasoda's love. Why don't you come up? Well, why don't you come up? Um, so, sit here. Now he's thinking, this is Mother Yasoda's love. If I eat this butter, it's going to pacify me, and I won't be angry anymore. And if I'm not angry, the pastime won't happen. If I'm not angry, Mother Yasoda's not going to bind me. Remember I said the other day that, why was she going to bind him? Because he was angry. He'd broken a pot. He had stolen butter. So she thought, who knows what he's going to do? Because he's angry. And as long as he's angry, I have to tie him up because he's dangerous, so to speak. So then Krishna, he goes out of the Leela into the thinking, if I eat this butter, I'll be pacified because I'll be feeling Mother Yasoda's love. So I better not eat it. If I eat too much, the pastime will be over. So he goes out of his position as a little boy into Krishna and then back into it. Isn't that interesting? How he can do that? Now, here's a little insight. This is really interesting. What canto is it? 10th canto. 10th canto. Wow. Can I steal it? Where'd you get it? What?
Yes, please.
Don't put it on the floor. No, it's okay. So we all know Krishna steals butter, right? You know why? His mother's butter and dairy products was so saturated with her incomparable love that it would immediately bridle him and bring him under her control. Such an outcome would be incompatible with his pastimes, so he likes to eat butter and yogurt, so he would steal it from the neighbors. Because if he eats Mother Yasoda's butter, then he just becomes like a little docile animal and do whatever she says. And being naughty is increasing the pastimes. From? Wow.
I'm sorry, I'm stupid. I forgot to take it before.
It's okay. So now you know why he steals butter. And Mother Yasoda thinks he steals butter because the neighbor's butter must be better than my butter. So she tries to make better butter. And the better the butter she makes, the more he steals the other butter because he doesn't want to be controlled. You understand? Interesting, isn't it? So now, he's starting to eat the butter, and immediately he's in anxiety because he's in the storeroom and he's not supposed to be there, and he's thinking, what if Mother Soda comes in now and finds me here? Or what if my friends see me here and they tell Mother Soda? So he's in anxiety. So he started crying. And now he was in fear of Yasoda, thinking, well, if she finds me, I'm really going to be in trouble. So then he runs out of the storeroom into the garden because he wants to hide from his mother. But then what happens? As I said, Yogamaya didn't allow Mother Yasoda to see him, so she kept him hidden anyway. She couldn't. She didn't know what was going on. Okay. So now he's afraid, he's crying. How will I get out of this storeroom? And then he runs out of the storeroom. He reaches the broken churn. And he walks around all over the spilled butter and yogurt, feeling very satisfied that he wasn't caught. Okay, now we're going to talk a little bit about his false tears and his separation. Although we have spoken about this. Anyway, we'll speak about it some more. We were speaking yesterday how... You could come here. We were speaking yesterday how... Krishna... and when Mother Yasoda put Krishna down, then he was feeling separation. And then he was crying because his mother put him down, and he was angry. But actually, he was feeling the sweetness of separation. Because separation has a sweetness. It's actually said that separation is more blissful. So externally he's crying, and internally he's blissful. It's like when Krishna came back to Vrindavan, it said Radharani was almost dead. He found her lying on the ground, almost dead. So externally it looks like she's in pain, but internally she's experiencing great bliss. Poison on the outside and sweetness on the inside. That's separation. Right? So, we're going to read something about separation, just so we can better understand this. Love of God is experienced in two ways, meeting and separation. While the joys of association are self-evident, those of separation are not. What is characteristic of separation is pain, which is identified with the effects of snake poison. In this analogy, sometimes separation is like snake poison, or the poison of the snake. There's another experience in separation, that's transcendental bliss, which comes from a uniquely deep absorption in the beloved, an absorption that is equivalent to association. So, if I'm separated from Krishna, what do I think of? Krishna. And what happens when you think of Krishna, who is all blissful? You become blissful. So the separation causes the focus on Krishna to intensify. And so you can't be miserable when you focus on Krishna, right? So the separation, which is painful, oh Krishna, you're gone, causes you to focus on him. And not only that, Krishna is absolute. So he's present in your thinking. So the separation is only an illusion. You're not really separated. It just seems like you're separated because you don't see him physically, but you're thinking of him within. Right? And just like we were saying earlier in the pastime, Jasoda went in the kitchen and she was thinking of Krishna. And Krishna thought, where am I? Am I here or am I in Jasoda's heart? And he got bewildered because her thinking of Krishna was Krishna. So Krishna for a moment couldn't figure out where he was because it looked like he was in the heart of Jasoda, even though he wasn't there. So even if you think of Krishna in separation, it's painful to be separated, but to think of him as blissful, and the meditation is more intensified, so it's more blissful. So separation increases the bliss, even though it looks like it's painful. Does that make sense? Because Krishna is absolute, and therefore you're actually in separation closer. And we gave the example many times how, especially devotees who had important service or who had the service of book distribution, they felt closer to Prabhupada in that service than they did personally sitting next to him. And Prabhupada had said, 4 or 5 times I saw my Guru Maharaj. That's all. But I always feel that I'm with him. And he said, I have God brothers that were with him constantly. But not always able to appreciate. And sometimes I felt that also because I was in Los Angeles. Prabhupada was there for 3 months. Every day I got to see Prabhupada. And I could see after a while that some of the devotees who weren't in Los Angeles were probably feeling closer to Prabhupada than I was, because the closeness comes from service, not enjoying. I can sit in front of him and listen and enjoy. And Prabhupada always said, don't try to enjoy the spiritual master. So you associate your service. I'm not minimizing personal association. You should always get it. But many times, devotees felt closer to Prabhupada when they were separated. They felt special connection through service. Yes?
There be separation if we are closer to Krishna, if we are separated, so we are always with him, so there's no separation.
Yeah, it's an illusion. We call it separation. But you could call it meeting and separation. Externally, it appears to be separation. Just like you may be separated from your friends in Germany, but you're thinking of them. So you feel closer. Even though it seems like you're separated, you'll say, no, we're always thinking of one another. Right? Sometimes you can feel that they're thinking of you. They can feel you're thinking of them. So the separation is only apparent. So in that sense, there is no separation. But we use that word to describe what appears to be separation physically. As Prabhupada said, I was always with my spiritual master. And I told the story before that when Prabhupada came to a temple, and that temple was filled from wall to wall with brahmacharis, all freshly shaven, every single one. We used to wear this cloth which was made from polyester, and it was pre-dyed, so it would never fade, and it would never wrinkle. So we had, it was like that color of Prabhupada's dhoti, and everyone in the room was shaved up with tilak and had a dhoti without a wrinkle of that color. And so Prabhupada walked in, and he actually didn't walk in. He walked to the door and then he just stopped. So look at it. Because this was the largest assembly of brahmacharis, to date in ISKCON that Prabhupada had seen in one place. And he just watched it, and later he told the devotees that he asked his spiritual master to come and see. So you can imagine how close Prabhupada was to his spiritual master, that he could say, come and look. It's amazing, right? So obviously he never felt separated. And we feel that also. If you're engaged in the service, then who you're serving, the person you're serving, you feel close to, right? I was telling the other night, we had one godbrother, and he was serving Prabhupada, and he wanted to leave that service because he felt very far from Prabhupada, being close to him, because he felt that he couldn't properly honor Prabhupada. As a spiritual master, he became too familiar. And it was hard to see him as Sakshat Hari, non-different, or the Guru is to be seen as God. He couldn't see him that way. It was too intimate. And he said, Prabhupada, can I leave your service? Because I will do better being away from you. Well, he thought he would be. Anyway, he didn't end up doing better. Because Prabhupada wanted him to stay, so he lost Prabhupada's mercy. But the point is, he was feeling he would be closer by being distant. It's interesting, isn't it? Have you ever felt that way? Sometimes, I would be closer by serving. Let me go out and serve, do something. One time, Prabhupada was sitting in the morning with all the leaders and sannyasis, and he asked, where is so-and-so Maharaj? And so-and-so Maharaj. He was out distributing books, and Prabhupada said, he's doing more service than all of you. You're just sitting here with me. He's out serving. So, there is no separation. That's the point. It only appears to be separate. Now, when, like, you've heard stories about Prabhupada leaving and the pain the devotees experienced when Prabhupada left, right? And it was genuine pain, and the separation was intense because it wasn't like separation of 35 years. It was like separation of one day after 10 years. That was very intense. So we felt the separation. We didn't feel the closeness and separation. We just felt the separation. Prabhupada's not here. And you've probably heard, or if you haven't, you will hear, when any devotees talk about Prabhupada leaving, they'll all say, we thought he would never leave. At least he wouldn't leave in 1977. So I have to explain why we thought that way. The reason we thought that way is that, according to us, it would be impossible for the Hare Krishna movement to be maintained and expand without Prabhupada. That was everyone's conviction. That the Hare Krishna movement is Prabhupada. With that, it's like you can't live without a heart. So Prabhupada is like the heart. So we would just think Krishna will not take Prabhupada because he's the heart of ISKCON, and if there's no heart, there's no ISKCON. So certainly, he came to start this movement. It's meant to change the world. Krishna will not take Prabhupada. That's how we thought. It was like there was no place in our brain for a Hare Krishna movement without Prabhupada. It was not real. It just couldn't exist. So we just thought that maybe Prabhupada would live to be 100, because if he lived to be 100, that means we'd be in our 40s. So he died in 60. I was 27 when he died. So Prabhupada, I think, was 82. So if he lived another 18 years, so then I'd be 45. Okay, by the time I'm 45, then probably we could handle it. So that's how we thought. Maybe he'll live 100 years, then we'll be old enough and experienced enough. And probably it would have been true. That many of the problems we faced, we wouldn't have faced if Prabhupada lived longer. So that's just how we thought. So it's kind of like you have a friend, like they're 45 and they die of a heart attack. And you're completely shocked because you don't expect it. So Prabhupada leaving was like that. It was just like Bhakti Swarup Swami Maharaj said today. Prabhupada came to Vrindavan from London. Everyone was ecstatic. And then Prabhupada sat down and told everyone, I've come here to die. And then everyone started crying. It was just like everybody was devastated. So when Prabhupada left, we were experiencing separation, but no closeness and separation. We're only experiencing separation. Intensely, that Prabhupada is God. That's how we were feeling. Just the gone part. And we were traumatized. And then when the trauma started to subside a little bit, so we could start thinking of the philosophy that actually the Guru was present in separation, it was completely philosophical. Nobody was feeling it. And it was, as I said, Krishna conscious. It's like khichdi is rice and beans, right? So if I say, make khichdi without rice and beans, you'll say, that's no khichdi, you can't do that. So it was like ISKCON without Prabhupada is not ISKCON. So we were kind of groping with that reality that there's no Prabhupada here. And that it's like, it was all just dark. Like completely dark. And it took us many, 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 many years to start realizing that he was still there guiding us, and we could still experience his presence in his service. But it came very slow, and it came with maturity. And now if you talk to the senior devotees and say, do you feel separation from Prabhupada? Of course they'll say yes, but not the way they would say it in 1977. Like, it was so bad that I had it's the wrong thought, but it was an emotional thought. And there were times it was so bad, I thought, I wish I never met Prabhupada, because if I didn't, I wouldn't have to suffer now, this separation. It was that bad. It was like, it was so good with him, that it was so bad without him, that I would, in my craziness, think, if I never met him, I would be okay. It was that bad. It was like almost intolerable. So as I said, it took us many, many years to start to realize that through service we were still there, he was still there, and he was still guiding us. And any time I took responsibility, I always felt closer to him. I felt guidance, I felt somewhat like, how should I say, that I would always remember him more. I've been president many times, and that's a big responsibility in Prabhupada's movement. So whenever you take that responsibility to serve Prabhupada or serve your spiritual master, you naturally feel closer. And it was in that service over so many years, and in the fact that we kept advancing, and the fact that we kept advancing must have meant that Prabhupada was there. Otherwise, how could we advance if he's not there? Right? That we still must be getting his mercy. So then, because we were advancing, then we could start to feel that, yes, he's there. He's guiding us, his mercy is there. He knows what we're doing. And I have no way to access his association physically. You know, a lot of times, when Prabhupada was here and devotees weren't doing well, they would just go see Prabhupada, and that would fix it. You just have to see him. That was enough. He wouldn't even have to say anything. If you weren't doing well, you could just fly where Prabhupada was and see him for one day and then go back and you'd be fine. Seriously. No matter how bad you were. Just spend a day at the temple with Prabhupada, see him give class. Even just see him come through the airport. Just go to the airport and see him, and it's okay. That's all I needed. Now I can go back to my temple. So we had that facility. We had that option. So we hadn't learned how to cultivate that feeling of separation, because when Prabhupada left, you couldn't do that anymore. So you had to do that. That's the only way you could associate that. And that took years of learning how to do it and dealing with the pain of separation and beginning to experience the pain of the bliss of association and separation. And now if you ask senior devotees today, do you feel separation from Prabhupada? They'll say no. They'll say like what Prabhupada said, I feel that he's always with me. But if you ask that 1977, everybody would say yes. I feel intense pain of separation. So it takes some maturity and advancement to feel that. And Prabhupada's leaving, as he said, I live always in my book. So Prabhupada knew he wasn't leaving us. And he knew the most important thing were his instructions. And he left us his instructions. Otherwise, we were thinking, Prabhupada won't die because we're not Krishna conscious and he can't leave us. Because if he leaves us, we'll all fall into Maya and the movement will be finished. So we thought in our minds, definitely he won't leave us. And now he's leaving us. And in Prabhupada's mind, I'm not leaving you because I'm leaving you my books. Right? The other day I was reading Prabhupada's books early in the morning. I was studying some topic, I forget what it was. Reading for an hour maybe, like between 6 and 7, something like that. And my wife came in the room, or somebody came in. I said, I just felt like I spent an hour in a darshan with Prabhupada. And I've spent an hour in a darshan with Prabhupada several times, so I know what it feels like. And it felt exactly like that. Like absolutely no difference. Reading that book or sitting in front of him, the same effect. So Prabhupada knew that I'm not leaving you, I'm there in my books. And when you read his books and you feel his presence, then you understand that this is transcendental to the 3 dimensions. It's beyond that. And we've heard many stories where Prabhupada showed up when his disciples were dying. We recently heard a story where a devotee had a dream and Prabhupada showed up for another devotee, and the devotee was surprised, and Prabhupada told her, don't you think I'll come for you also? Right? You were there in that class? No. Don't you think I'll come for you also? So that's the idea of separation. That it's actually sweeter because you're thinking more about the person you love. And in this case, the person you love is non-different than thinking. There's no difference between the person and thoughts of the person. So therefore, there can't be any separation. I mean, just imagine, we were in our 20s when Prabhupada left. Some devotees joined in 1975, Prabhupada left in 1977. Some of those devotees never even saw him. They got initiated by mail and they never saw their spiritual master. And they're still here today and they feel close to him and they never even saw him. So you're all thinking, well, I wish I could have seen Prabhupada. Some of his disciples didn't even see him. Interesting, right? Isn't that interesting? And if you ask them, do you feel close to Prabhupada? They'll say yes. But I think one of the most significant things is that statement of Prabhupada. I only met my spiritual master 4 or 5 times. The person who spread Krishna consciousness around the world was not a sannyasi standing next to Bhakti Siddhanta hour after hour, day after day, serving and listening to him. He was someone who only met him 4 or 5 times, but who took the order on his head, and then because of that order, he said, I always felt he was always by my side, through the order. Nice, huh? Sometimes devotees would prefer to serve Prabhupada in separation. They'd go to different parts of the world, and they'd make huge sacrifice. Go through a lot of difficulty, but they felt closer to Prabhupada doing that. They'd leave Prabhupada to go preach, and they'd feel closer at a distance because of the challenges of that service. Yeah? Love of Krishna is so powerful that it simultaneously defeats the poisonous effects of the snake of separation, as well as the happiness derived from pouring nectar on the head. Association. It is perceived as doubly effective, poison and nectar. But the poison is nectar. Yes? Too hot to taste, too sweet to resist. The bliss tasted by the devotee is greater than the bliss tasted by Krishna, because Krishna is experiencing separation also. When we talk about separation, we're always talking about separation of the devotee from Krishna. But here in this story, we're also learning about Krishna's separation from Jasoda. But Jasoda's separation is greater because Krishna is more attractive. So her love is more intense, therefore separation is more intense. And this is why Krishna becomes jealous of his devotees, because they get to experience more bliss than he does. And he thinks that's not fair. Everybody wants to be God, right? I could be God, I could do anything, I could control anything. And here, we're finding that the devotee is experiencing more bliss than God. That God's envious of the devotee. God wants to be a devotee. We come to the material world to be God, but God wants to be a devotee. Isn't that amazing? Krishna is envious of the devotees because they experience love that he doesn't experience. That's amazing, isn't it? So Krishna comes as Mahaprabhu to become a devotee. And we're devotees. He wants to be like us. So we can love him. You know, one day of Brahma is 4,300,000,000 years. And his night is also, so it's 8,600,000,000. That's one day. That's a long time. How many days of Brahma does Krishna appear? Once in a day of Brahma. Yes? Every 8,300,000,000 years. Yes? 1,000 cycles of the 4 Kali Yugas. They go around 1,000 times. And then Krishna comes. Then 1,000 more, Krishna comes. 1,000 more. So that's every 8,600,000,000 years, Krishna comes. Here. Guess what? You're here. One chance in 8,600,000,000, you're here. That's amazing. Don't you think? If you ever think that maybe Maya is better than Krishna, or you ever think I should leave Krishna consciousness, just remember, you are here out of one chance out of 8,600,000,000. The chance of being in the same yuga that Krishna appeared. And you somehow or other ended up as a devotee. And somehow or other, you're sitting in Vrindavan at Karti. So appreciate it. You know, you might think, oh, but Warren Buffett has so much money, and all I have is debts, and I wish I had his money, and I wish I had the looks of whoever. You know, don't think like that. You have incredible wealth, incredible opulence. Every name of Krishna you chant is worth mountains of diamonds, isn't it? I always have to think we're the most fortunate. We are. Don't think it, just accept it. It's a fact. Okay. So, okay, does anyone have any questions? Yes. Yes.
Following on yesterday's question, you were explaining that how surrender will come naturally.
Yeah.
Um,
You decided not to surrender because it's not coming naturally? Yes.
so, my question is somehow in my Krishna consciousness journey, since I joined, I was thrown into the outreach, and
You were what?
Krishna put me in the outreach, preaching, outreach,
Average?
outreach,
Oh, outreach.
And so you were saying that we should serve according to our capacity. You were telling me yesterday.
Nature, yeah.
But I found that somehow it just didn't work like that with me. There's always so much service. It's like
Can I stop for a second? What is this?
pumpkins.
Oh, I thought it was tea or something. Okay. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
So,
And that's not your nature.
there's a lot of service and like for example, this year I had a knee surgery, so I like normally you'd be sad about it, but I was like, oh, Hare Krishna, just have a little break, like and this is I realized it's a wrong attitude, it's not healthy. And, so what is that? Am I like pushing myself too much in service? Am I serving in motivation? How did I get to this stage?
Do you know the answer? What do you think? Don't use your head. What do you feel?
Well, there's always
She's asking. We could rephrase the question. That you're trying to understand if you're pushing yourself too much, you're surrendering too much beyond your capacity, or you're not being, you're being lazy, or ignorant, or apathetic, or am I being intelligent to understand my limitations, or I'm just being lazy?
when there's so much service and the outreach has to go on and sometimes should you sometimes just overlook your needs and just push on, keep it up? And it's not just sometimes, I find that it's all the
Okay.
time.
I think the answer is yes if you don't ask that question. Because if you don't ask that question, you're able to do it. And if you ask that question, it means you feel that your needs aren't being met and you're not able to do it. Because if your needs weren't being met, you wouldn't ask the question. You feel that way to ask the question. So the fact that you're asking it indicates to me that you have certain needs that have to be met. Otherwise, you'll kind of come to the end of your rope. And then you'll have no energy to serve. So it's like, let's say we're hiking a trail up a mountain, right? And the altitude's getting high. And you're having a difficult time. And you're thinking, should I go for it? Or should I rest down here for a while? And you don't know what to do. And then you kind of analyze, well, how am I going to make it to the top? Will I make it to the top if I rest, get my energy up, take a look, whatever I need to do? Or will I get to the top, am I just being lazy and I should just keep pushing like everybody else? That's the question, isn't it? Similar question, yeah. So then you have to answer that question. If I continue this way, am I going to collapse? Now, the problem that you're having is, this is how I would restate your question perhaps. I feel that if I keep going at this pace, I'm going to collapse. Does that mean I'm out of shape? Does that mean I'm lazy? Does that mean I'm not healthy? Whatever it means, you're going to collapse, right? Whatever it means, you're going to collapse. And if you collapse, you're not going to get up the mountain. Now, the problem we have is then we start thinking, but I shouldn't collapse. There must be something wrong with me to collapse, right? Okay, but that's just a reality. Am I lazy? Maybe. Am I not healthy? Maybe. Can I not deal with the altitude? Maybe. But whatever it is, you're going to collapse. At least, if something doesn't change. So if you can't be made healthy and you can't change your attitude on the spot, it might take a while. Maybe you need a year to get prepared to be able to climb to the top of the mountain, right? So part of the problem that we have when we're looking at these scenarios and we're thinking, I should be with the rest of them climbing, is part of us knows that if I do that, I'll collapse. But part of us feels, but I should be doing that. There's something wrong with me because they're doing it and I'm not. Right? Does that make sense?
Sometimes you think, no, Krishna can do anything. He can empower. So does it really mean that deep down inside I might not want to?
Okay. Let's say maybe deep down inside you don't want. But maybe that's a reality right now. And because it's the reality, you have to deal with the reality. And the problem often is we don't accept the reality. It's like, well, they're doing it, so I should be able to do it. And then I try to do what they're doing, and then I fall on my face. Instead of acknowledging, okay, I should be able to do what they're doing. Okay, that's fine. But if I do, I'm going to collapse. So therefore, it's not smart to try to do what they're doing. I maybe need another year or 2 or 3 to build up my energy, to overcome, to get motivated to do it, to become healthy enough. I got to do more climbing, so I get used to climbing. So it's all the guilt that comes in, that I should be doing this. And the I should is correct. But what's not correct is that you're not ready to do the I should, and just accept it. That's okay. The problem is when we can't accept that, then we get all disturbed. It's okay. Whatever you can do, but don't collapse. Because if you collapse, then you'll never get to the top. You'll just get there later. Right? Does that make sense? And that goes in line with what I said yesterday, that you can't surrender beyond surrender. Like you can't climb to the top of the mountain when you can't climb to the top of the mountain. You see, the way Prabhupada explained Krishna consciousness to us, he explained what pure devotional service is, and he explained what pure devotees are, so we know what we're shooting for. But he didn't say, I want you all to feel guilty that you're not pure devotees right now. We said that to ourselves, but he never said that. He said, be patient, you'll get there. And we're thinking, well, no, there's something wrong with me because I'm not there. So the guilt is coming from us, not from him. He has to explain what pure devotional service is. He has to show you, there's Mount Everest. That's where you're going. And here's the way you get there. And if somebody's ahead of you, they're just stronger. Or they practiced in their last life how to climb mountains. They're already ahead of you. You're handicapped. That's okay. You can learn also. So that's where we run into the problem. Like, okay, it says right here I should be surrendered. Okay, I understand that. We need to understand that's the standard, right? But don't let that standard make you feel bad if you're not there. That's kind of like the, I don't know, I call it the Catholic Baptist samskar. You feel bad because you're not perfect or whatever. You're not the way you're supposed to be. You see, it's a balance. No, we're not saying Mount Everest is not the goal, and we're not saying that you need to get there. We're just saying how you're going to get there, when you're going to get there, is going to be different for different people according to how fit they are. And if you're not fit enough to get there yet, that's okay. You have your whole life ahead of you to get fit. So if you can't do this service because you know you're going to collapse, you do that service. I'll tell you a story. I mean, I can say this because I'm not a temple president with the service that I need you to do. If I were temple president with the service I need you to do, I might say all this and I'll say, but could you do this for the next few weeks because we don't have anybody to do it? And you say, sure. But you just say, I can't do it for the next few years. And I say, yeah, I understand that. So sometimes it's like that. So Prabhupada came to Los Angeles in 1976. Well, he came every year. I think this was his last trip to Los Angeles. And in Los Angeles, he visited various departments. And each department focused on a different service. So he visited the BBT where they warehoused all the books that were distributed, being shipped out to all the temples in America. And then there they had Spiritual Sky Incense Company, and I believe he visited that company. Then they had the publication department where they laid the books out the old way, where you'd print and you'd cut and paste. For those of you who are young, there were machines, typesetting machines, and they would print out the type, and then it would be cut, and there was a certain kind of wax that you put on the paper, and then you'd lay out the page. So, so there's a little piece of Sanskrit, then the verse, text number, everything was cut, and it was just lined up, and you had rulers, and you line it up. That's how they did it. So he visited that, and then there was an art department, and he visited that, looking at the paintings. Then there was a department that was making dioramas, and he visited that. And then there was a recording studio, and he visited that. And after he visited all these places, he said, make money for Krishna, distribute books for Krishna, paint for Krishna, sing for Krishna, do art for Krishna. It was like he was just, whatever they were doing, he was saying, do that for Krishna. So what he was saying is, whatever your nature is, whatever your ability is, do that for Krishna. We're the ones that make, we're the ones that make us feel like, oh, I should do this, not that. Now, sometimes that's true in certain circumstances. There are priorities. And if we're limited in manpower, there are certain things we should do. But as a general principle, Prabhupada's principle was, do something, be happy. So my personal experience, or my personal management style is, that if you're in my temple, I would feel that your being happy is the most valuable thing for your productivity. If you're happy, you'll be the most productive, right? So if I can just make sure you're happy, whatever it is you're doing, and I can make sure he's happy, and he's happy, and she's happy, and everybody's happy, we'll have an amazing temple. And it may not be exactly the way I conceived of exactly what I would like to do, but if I conceived of what I would like to do and all of you are unhappy, it would be a failure, right? So sing for Krishna, distribute books for Krishna, paint for Krishna, do deity worship for Krishna, make dolls for Krishna, make clothes for Krishna. That's the idea. Prabhupada, when he was in L.A., then he called for the head pujari. The head pujari is thinking, oh no, what did I do wrong? Prabhupada wants to see me. He said, why, you're not a senior devotee, so why would Prabhupada want to see you? Immediate thought is, I've dressed the deities improperly or something's wrong. So, Prabhupada told her, I said, I want to thank you for dressing the deities and taking care of them so nicely. Because Prabhupada knows by seeing the deities if they're happy. Like I always ask pujaris, I say, whatever the deities' names are, I say, are Radha Gopi not happy? And the pujari says, I hope so. And I say, no, you should know. Because sometimes Prabhupada would ask, are they happy? Deity's happy. Well, you should know if they're happy. But anyway, Prabhupada knows, and he said, I'm very happy with you for taking care of the deities. And he said, you continue this way, you go back to Godhead in this lifetime. Yeah. So in those days, it was kind of like, well, the book distributors will go back to Godhead. Everyone else, maybe, I don't know. Who knows if they will? The book distributors will. The Prabhupada didn't think that way. So you can also see that there were many projects going on during Prabhupada's time. Not because Prabhupada created the projects, but because the devotees were inclined to do them. To preach in the colleges, to give lectures in classes, to distribute books to professors, to enter politics, to open schools. All these things were prompted by the devotees' own desires. And Prabhupada didn't say, no, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. He said, yes, do it. So your natural inspiration, follow your inspiration. In the beginning, we move in the temple, we do anything. That's our training. Boot camp. You learn to be obedient, submissive. Learn to sacrifice, do austerity, do whatever you're told. That's brahmachari life, brahmachari life. But even amongst the senior brahmacharis, they find their way. How can I best serve? Prabhupada had a servant, personal servant, which meant all day, not a secretary, personal servant, all his needs. It was take care of all his needs, so he always needed to be there all day, morning, evening. And Prabhupada was emphasizing book distribution, and a lot of devotees were going on in Sankirtan, and he was seeing the devotees, and he was seeing how blissful they were. So he said, Prabhupada, can I go out in Sankirtan? Can I go out on book distribution? Prabhupada said, yes, but without my blessings. So what did Prabhupada mean? He said, if you go out, who's going to serve me? Your service is to serve me. And he was thinking, well, better service is I do book distribution. But his service was to serve Prabhupada. So it's not always that you get mercy for doing one service. But I think for us, because in our lives we can flip to Maya very easily. We're tatasta, which means we go either way. Anytime we can go either way. So for us it's important to be engaged in a service where you feel like I could do this all my life. And that I could easily surrender to this. That I feel like giving more of myself to this comes naturally, like we discussed last night. Surrender will be natural. So sometimes maybe the lack of surrender is just it's the wrong service. And I can't surrender. But when I do this other service, I just feel like I could dedicate myself. Like I travel a lot, and I do a lot of workshops when I travel. And sometimes even when I do workshops, at the end of the day, someone will have a program somewhere else, and after 8 hours in the workshop, I'll go do a program. And then I'll start the workshop the next morning. And sometimes I'll give Bhagavatam class that morning. And I may have already given Bhagavatam class the morning before, so I did the workshop. Then the program at night. Then I do my online classes on Saturday and Sunday night after the workshop. And sometimes in other time zones, they're early in the morning. Then I do one for Australia, and sometimes that's like 3 in the morning. So everywhere I go, people say, aren't you tired? And I say, you only get tired when you do something you don't like. So when you do something you like, you don't get tired. So am I surrendered? Maybe not, but I'm surrendered to that because I like doing it. And I like people becoming Krishna conscious. So when you find a service like that, you surrender to it, right? It's natural. It's easy. You give your energy. And what's the whole goal? The goal is to give our energy. So Prabhupada said, do something. It doesn't matter what you do, but do something that inspires you, because if it inspires you, you give all your energy to Krishna. And that's the whole point. If you're giving all your energy to Krishna, then you don't have to worry about Maya. But if you're doing something you really don't like, you will tend often to lose enthusiasm. So I'm not saying that if your temple president asks you to do something you don't like, you don't do it. I'm talking about your long-term career. If your long-term career is something that you have little inspiration to do, it'll probably be problematic for your service unless you're extremely surrendered. And you're so surrendered you can do anything and still be happy. But again, if you're not, then you have to realize if I continue this way, I will collapse. So it's better I rest for a day and live than try to climb the mountain and die. Does that make sense? So now you have, okay, now tomorrow you go to class and someone says, surrender to Krishna. Right? So one way of understanding that is I should surrender to my intelligence which guides me in the best way I can serve so that I can surrender my mind, body, words, and soul most enthusiastically. So when they say surrender, you think, okay, I have to frame, because when they say surrender, you're thinking Siberia peeling potatoes in a kitchen without heat, right? Isn't it? Something like that. Or when we say surrender, we tend to think of the thing that I would least like to do. I distributed books for 20 years, and I can't do it anymore. So when they say surrender, your first thought is, I should be on the street doing book distribution. I feel so guilty, because I'm good at it and I'm not doing it. No, but you can think surrender means utilizing my skills, abilities, intelligence, and nature and doing something that inspires me. And doing something that will extract voluntarily my energy in service to Krishna. That way the word surrender doesn't bring out all this guilt and feelings of shame that I should be doing this and that. Because we don't want a society of guilty, shameful devotees. That won't spread Krishna consciousness. Right? Will it? Yeah. So if you're happy, that is a fundamental aspect of your ability to bring other people to Krishna consciousness. Because if you're not happy as a devotee, then people get around you and they think, I'm not going to be a devotee because if I become a devotee, I'll become miserable like you. And I don't know if you were there last night, but we talked about how you can feel a culture. So if everyone in a temple is doing something that really they don't like, and they're all feeling not very enthusiastic, people will feel that. And they'll just intuitively feel like, I don't really want to be part of this organization because these people, they don't really look happy. Right? So we have to deal with that, because if we don't deal with it properly, then we'll get in this mood of feeling shamed or guilty. And that's certainly not what Prabhupada wants. Prabhupada wants you to be happy, and he wants you to be happy in serving. And don't ever forget that. And if someone tries to make you feel guilty, just always understand that unless I'm inspired and happy, I can't become Krishna conscious. It's not through guilt that I'll become Krishna conscious. A little guilt is good. But it's not through consistent guilt that I'll become Krishna conscious. It's not possible. That will just bring me down. And anyone who tries to make you feel guilty is doing a disservice to you. If someone tries to make you feel guilty, it's a disservice to you. Maybe you do one thing wrong and I point it out, but not your entire life. That you should be doing this and you're not doing it, so you're a bad person. Or you should be ashamed of yourself. Like that. That wasn't Prabhupada's mood. In fact, a lot of times Prabhupada's mood was not even to tell you to do something, but ask, would you like to do this? Which is a nice way of saying, I'd like you to do this. Would you like to go here and open a temple? Because Prabhupada was aware that this is a volunteer movement. And he can't, even as a guru, he can't force. I mean, a few leaders he would force. You're going to be a GBC sannyasi? Yeah. Then you're going to carry out the order. For the average devotee, you'd like to do this service? Could you do this with this? Is this something you like? We need to open more temples. Who would like to do it? Like that. So Prabhupada was aware that we need to do services that are in line with our nature. And that's the best management and the best way to inspire, to enliven devotees. Don't you think? You see, what is happening is we know what the right thing to do is, but not all of us are on that level. And if we don't accept the level we're on, then we'll feel guilty, and we still won't be doing what we're supposed to be, what we think we're supposed to be doing, but we'll be feeling guilty, rather than just being satisfied with accepting this is where I'm at, and this is what I can do and what I can't do, and be happy with that, and accept myself. We'll do that, but we'll be focused on what we should be doing, so we won't be satisfied and happy with what we're doing. And that's a mistake, because that's not a good platform from which to advance, is it? Because it's negative. It's really influenced by tamagun.
What about saying that we should always challenge ourselves in Krishna consciousness?
Yeah, so find that service that you like to do, then challenge yourself. That will be natural. I love to do this. Okay. I love to make devotees. I want to make 10,000 devotees before I die. Well, that's a big challenge. How am I going to do that? Right? But that challenge will inspire you because it's something you like to do. You know, sometimes devotees, they do projects which cause them a lot of anxiety, but they really want to do it. So they'll tolerate the anxiety because they really want to achieve that result. Right? It's another way of framing this is that there's nothing wrong with being a conditioned soul. We all are conditioned souls, so there's nothing wrong with it. As long as you're in the process of purifying yourself, everything is good. So it doesn't matter where you are. If you're on the first level, the second floor, third floor, fourth floor. As long as you're walking up the stairway, you'll get to the top. So that's what we have to see, that we're in the process and we're walking up. Now, where a lot of devotees run into trouble is they're walking up from the first floor to the second floor. It's 16 floors up, and they're thinking, oh man, I'm so bad, I'm only on the first floor. That's where their consciousness is. It's like, what's wrong with me? I'm on the first floor. There's so many devotees already on the 10th floor. Right? But rather, you should be thinking, I'm walking up the stairs. These are the right stairs, and these stairs will go to the 16th floor, so everything's good. That's how you're supposed to think. It's all good. Right? But we're thinking, no, something wrong with me. I'm only on the first floor. It doesn't matter. As long as you're doing the process to go up, then it's good. You should be happy. So it's where you focus. Right? Does that make sense? Like I was saying, 8,600,000,000 chances. Doesn't matter. You're on the first floor. You're going to the top. It's rare, even to be on the first floor. It's good. I guess class is over. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Premanandi.